were kids decades ago, we are now grown adults. Many of us are just wondering, like, is this actually how you guys who are older than us? Is this how it was when you were also, so curious? Makes us more like concluded that a society that is so lawless and some individuals are above the law eh, is a failed society. If it hasn't failed already, well, it's got all the potentials to fail. That's what the contraption is. Now, to Malema himself. Julius Malema is also hated by his fellow black South Africans, by the way, just so you know, because he is considered as a simp for foreigners. They have a group called the Dudula movement or Dudula something. They are vigilantes. They go about harassing, their fellow Africans mostly in their country, and they blame them for all their woes. Oh, these guys comes into our country, they bring in drugs, they do prostitution, they traffic our girls, and blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, South Africa is also a partly broken system too, just so you know, okay? So in that same broken system, those who are supposed to look inward, look at themselves, ask questions from their or hold their own leaders responsible, they put the blames on immigrants, this time their fellow Africans, to even make it worse. I'm not saying that there are no foreigners in South Africa who are committing crimes. So no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that to an average South African, they are not as enraged as they are towards their fellow Africans, not South Africans. And I'm talking about a kind of like a well-oiled sort of like xenophobia, hatred towards their fellow Africans. And to them, it's justified. The reason why they don't have jobs is because their fellow Africans are coming to South Africa to take the jobs. The reason why their businesses are not moving is because their fellow Africans are coming into South Africa and they are opening businesses that are only meant for South Africans, and other sundry stupid excuses that have made them to actually commit murder. They've killed people, burned people alive, their fellow Africans, and they have no regrets. If you meet any of them for real, right, they have no regrets. So when someone is now from South Africa, a politician who is very, very popular too, right? So Julius Malema is a Pan-Africanist, as you can tell, and his fellow South Africans, part of them, actually hates him. He's been known to have kind of like stood up for these foreigners and demanded that any of them that commits crime should actually be treated, right? They should be tried according to the South African laws. But that's not enough. He is believed to be an enabler. He's believed to be one of the enablers of Africans coming to South Africa. It's a very tough conversation, by the way. But somehow, he's still like Julius Malema is seen partly, right, as the last descendant of their struggle, the ANC struggle at the time. Somebody who still holds that grudge against the imperialists, they call them, right, against the West, how his own ancestors were treated. He himself also treated, and the way he felt like they might be in power in South Africa, okay? So they might be ruling in South Africa, but they are not in power. Blacks may be ruling in South Africa, but the blacks are not really in power. Somebody like Malema believes that. That is why most of the time it's sort of like a panders towards his fellow Pan-Africanists in a way to say, well, maybe this whole place is still revivable. And there are others who believes that maybe one day it's going to be their president in South Africa. And you are going to experience a different South Africa. A lot to unpack. But here is a full speech. I'm going to let the whole thing run. So sit back. Maybe you should bring out your pen because that's what I'm going to do too. So that when I come back, I can pick some of his points, speak on them. Malema's full speech at their NBA conference in Enugu yesterday.
Comrades, as I close, I want to state that as Africans, our fight has never been confined to the borders. From the very beginning, the struggle of South Africa against apartheid, we knew that suffering of one oppressed people anywhere in the world is the suffering of all oppressed people everywhere. It was in that spirit that South Africa, during its liberation struggle, was embraced by Nigeria and other African nations, who declared that apartheid was not simply a South African problem, but an African and global crime. It is in that same spirit that today we say our liberation as Africans will remain incomplete if we turn a blind eye to the struggles of those who continue to suffer under occupation, colonialism, imperialism, and economic exploitation. It is this tradition of solidarity that compels us today to speak clearly on the struggle of other oppressed people. The EFF continues to stand firmly with Western Sahara, Palestine, Cuba, Haiti, the Democratic Republic of Congo as a commitment to international law and justice. In Western Sahara, Morocco's continued occupation violates the principle of the United Nations Charter and the African Union's Constitutive Act, both of which enshrined the right to self-determination. The International Court of Justice affirmed in 1975 that Morocco had no sovereignty over Western Sahara. Yet, decades later, the Sahrawi people remain dispossessed. In Palestine, we are witnessing one of the gravest violations of international law in modern history. The apartheid regime of Israel has for decades defied UN resolutions, the Geneva Conventions, and international humanitarian law. Collective punishment, the bombing of hospitals, the illegal taking of land, the killing of children, and the deliberate starvation of populations are crimes under the Roman Statute of the International Criminal Court. The world cannot remain neutral in the face of genocide. And just as apartheid South Africa was declared a crime against humanity, so too must be the international community recognize and act against Israel's apartheid and genocide. The importance of fighting on the level of the law was made evident in this case when the South African government took Israel to International Court of Justice to report their crimes when no other country will do so. This fight in international court was won when the court declared that indeed Israel was perpetuating genocide, a win that was necessary to sway some support away from Israel and to embolden other countries to speak out. This fight also led to the International Criminal Court to issue a warrant of arrest for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his Minister of Defense for war crimes. This is the power of the legal fraternity in the global fight for the oppressed. However, the ICJ pace is slow and final judgment on charging Israel with genocide has not occurred yet. We must therefore confront the uncomfortable truth that the slow pace of these proceedings is not accidental, but reflects a global legal order designed and maintained under white supremacy. International law is swift and ruthless when prosecuting leaders of the global south, yet hesitant and cautious when dealing with crimes committed by Western powers or their allies. This is hypocrisy we must name without fear. When an African leader is accused, indictments are issued overnight, sanctions are imposed immediately, military interventions justified under the banner of international law. However, when Israel starves children in Gaza or the United States and its allies invade nations and topples governments, the same institutions suddenly discover restraint, complicity, and delay. As the legal fraternity of Africa, you cannot accept this double standard. You must be bold enough to create alternative and fair systems of accountability that do not bend to imperialist interests. If the so-called international community is unwilling to deliver justice in real time, then Africa must advance its own courts, its own tribunals, its own instruments of solidarity and protection. Just as we built liberation movements when colonialism denied us freedom, so too must we build new legal institutions when the existing ones fail us. In Cuba, for over 60 years, the United States has imposed an economic blockade in contravention of international law, including the principle of non-interference and the sovereign right of nations to choose their social and economic system. Despite this, Cuba has demonstrated a profound commitment to human solidarity, sending doctors across the globe, including to Africa, welcoming Africans into their classrooms and participating in the liberation of the oppressed. Cuba never sent their soldiers anywhere to kill anyone. Instead, they send their doctors all over to go and save life. The tragedy of Haiti is one of historical injustice. Haiti's revolution was first declaration of black freedom in the modern world, yet it was punished with centuries of economic sabotage and enforced debt. Contrary to any principle of justice, today Haiti suffers from foreign interference, the denial of sovereignty, and the imposition of external governance. International law demands reparation, debt cancellation, and the withdrawal of foreign forces so that Haiti can govern itself in dignity. We have seen DRC not experiencing peace because of its mineral resources. We must stand with DRC and demand that there must be permanent peace in DRC and everywhere else in Africa. Because DRC without peace, it will never experience economic growth. We are because DRC it is. We are the people of Southern Sudan. We must make sure that no single corner of Africa there are guns where Africans are killing each other. Africans must always be together against the enemy forces who want to exploit our country. We are here today.
Malema. So he's the leader of the EFF. He was the youth leader of the ANC, Africa National Congress, I think, ANC, the party of Mandela, Mbeki, and others. So he disagreed with the leadership styles of those men, and he led his own fellow youth, South Africans, to form a new party, a party that ended up becoming the opposition in their National Assembly. And since then, Malema has been projected to be not just a kind of like an embodiment of Pan-Africanism, but back home, most of his secretary call him the president of foreigners. You're right, president of the foreigners. The whites in South Africa, they despise him so much. In fact, they said he's always calling for genocide on them, right? So, and because of this, America have singled him out as a person of interest, so to say. Is that a spat with Trump on this, their global politics and exchanges? And when Trump decided to bring in the oppressed South Africans, white South Africans to America, Malema and Trump, or Trump's office, were having all this spat about America being deceived by the whites, who claims to be, long story. But here is the other part of his chart. Let's see if we can possibly take that in. 1 second.
Comrades, as I close, I want to state that as Africans, our fight has never been confined to the borders. From the very beginning, the struggle of South Africa against apartheid, we knew that suffering of one oppressed people anywhere in the world is the suffering of all oppressed people everywhere. It was in that spirit that South Africa, during its liberation struggle, was embraced by Nigeria and other African nations, who declared that apartheid was not...
Sorry, that's the other one. Somehow I couldn't put that up. It's all right. Let's go to something else because of our time. All right. So there's something about injustice that people need to understand why they can't keep quiet in the face of injustice being suffered by others, no matter the motive, no matter the agenda, because you are not safe. Remember that that long quote that they came for the Christians. I didn't care because I'm not a Christian. Then they came for the Muslims, but because I'm not a Muslim, so I didn't care. Then they came for the Hindus, the Jews. Then they came for the socialists, right? And then when they came for everybody, Sha, so I want to use it as my own quote now. They came for everyone because I wasn't everyone. I kept my mouth shut and I mind my business. Then one day they came for me. You know what happened? There was nobody to speak for me because everybody was gone. That's exactly the situation of injustice. And when you hear the word injustice anywhere, is a threat to justice anywhere. It simply means that if you, in the face of injustice and all that, if you keep quiet, what you're doing is, right, you are boxing yourself to the corner because one day it will be your turn and there will likely be no one else to speak for you. On Mayegun's Diary Political, I choose to hear the, what do you call it, the happenings in that contraption, in every part of the contraption. And I've always also been sharing those who are responsible for it, just so you are able to understand that those who are suffering from the injustice in the hands of those who they are suffering from, once they are done with them, you that think you are safe from it, you will realize that you are not safe. So what am I saying? Last year was one hell of a year after their 2023 charade, when their bigotry, went national. And since then, it's been one chaos after the other. So the APC, Egbekegbe, if you are not on their side, excuse me, if you are not on their side, you are not an opposition, you are an enemy. And they have the right to use everything within everything at their disposal to destroy you. Now, what makes it even worse is that things have gone tribal, ethnic, and worse. Yeah. So immediately after their charade in 2023, the Ronukus were everywhere. They were insisting that for the Igbos that did not vote for Tifnumbu, they must be removed from Lagos. Their shops must be destroyed. It was a general campaign everywhere, except if you are now looking at me and acting surprised. Don't. And of course, the government of Lagos State started their clandestine demolitions everywhere. People's landed documents were kind of like cancelled. They became irrelevant. Shops, markets were targeted, demolished. It was chaotic. In fact, around that time was the time that a lot of the Easterners were campaigning that you are just a stupid person if you actually carry your money right now to say you want to go and invest in their Lagos. It was that bad, right? Or so many others were saying, it's true now. Yeah, how can you come to somebody's land and you are not you are not supporting the person controlling the land? You are against it. And that's what they're saying. No, you are against Tifnumbu, that means you are against the Yorubas. If you are against Tifnumbu's politics, if you are not supporting Tifnumbu's politics, it is considered as being enemy of Yorubas by these Ronukus, these Ronu Omoalis, Ronu bastards. So everybody moved on, I think. In fact, I actually saw I read where the Ronukus were saying, look at the Hausas, look at the Northerners,